All right, we are now live.
Great.
So because we only have 3 people in our group, I've decided to modify this layout as it doesn't make any sense to do with 3 people the way it's kind of set out here.
Great.
I'm hoping you guys don't have any problems with that.
Nope.
Okay,
Nope.
so how they kind of wanted us to approach this was to split into 2 groups. One would be representing the company, kind of the employees, and one would be representing the corporation side of the deal here. So the local 190 or the Adam Baxter management. So those are kind of the 2 groups. And then we were supposed to kind of meet and get our things together. And there's a few key points that are the critical points that the whole negotiation revolves around. And so the whole point of this is to do a little bit of a give and take and to put yourself in the shoes of the 2 different groups and to determine kind of what you think you'd want to fight for and what stuff you couldn't fight, you couldn't give up. And I went ahead and read the corporation side. Did you guys read what side of the argument did you read, or did you do both?
I did Baxter's side.
Okay.
And I did the local 190.
Oh, good.
I
So
read
we'll
the
have a
local.
fight with you. No, I'm just kidding.
Hold
Up on you.
her on.
Go ahead.
So I thought what would be more beneficial is I was hoping that at least one of us would have read, each different side. So fortunately that has occurred. And I thought what we could do is we could go through each of the critical points and we could take turns representing the Baxter side, and then you could represent the other side, and we could kind of see what we think a good agreement would be for this situation. And there's about 5 or 6 points, so I thought we'd just go through each of those, and then I think we'll basically be done because there's not really any point in doing the rest of this.
Yep, that's great.
So let's see. I'll start us off. The first issue was the incentive program. So they used to have one. It got done away with when they got the new warehouse, the new factory going. My understanding was that because the new factory was updated, they didn't have an understanding of what was reasonable production outlets, and also there's a few other factors, like they're not just doing one product. They actually switch it up and stuff. And so with the new employees and all the different products and the new machinery, they didn't actually know what to expect, and so they had no way to do a very fair incentive program. And so what they did was they for the old employees, they were paying them something to do with escrow. The point was they were giving them equal pay to what they would have been receiving with the incentives. The new employees were just kind of losing out on it. But the theory from Baxter's side was, well, they never had it to begin with, so they don't know what they're losing. But the old employees are griping about it, and so now the new employees are mad about it.
Yeah.
All right, so that's kind of the issue here. For Baxter's side of things, I think an incentive program is actually a good thing. The company itself is kind of not in favor of having one, and so I'm supposed to be kind of arguing to not have one, but I honestly think that what they need to do is the reason that they don't want to have one is because they're scared that it's gonna screw up production. If they set them too low, then the employees won't want to work and they'll be paying more and getting less out of it. If they set them too high, then it's going to destroy morale. The employees won't be getting it. It could lead to bad practices. So what I would suggest as a compromise right up front would be to say, well, an incentive program's good, but try to explain to both sides that we need to establish a baseline to make it an effective incentive program. And so do like a trial period, like say a few months of good work and see kind of what's normal, and then gradually set increasing goals and base some moderate incentives on that can be adjusted when we know where things lie. That's kind of what I would say would be a good way to go. Since you, Heather, read the 190 side of things, what's your viewpoint on that?
Well, first of all, I read the stuff from 1978 and the stuff from 1983 because I thought that's what we're supposed to read, so I didn't read the negotiation part. So I'm just looking at it right now. Mm-hmm. And it says and maybe you guys have the same because it says Adam Baxter Company / Local 190 1985 negotiation. I don't know if we have the same thing to read, but it says that the current injury rate is
Right.
high because they're working so hard and trying to produce so much, and that so it says it's not the current the way things are operating is that it's harmful to their morale and also to their health. So an incentive program, I mean, I'm looking at an incentive program as, hey, if you work really hard, you get bonuses, right? Is that what we're talking about here?
More money on top. So
Yeah, they were
wouldn't
finding that
affect your base pay. It would just affect.
they were finding that the production rate was so low that sometimes the employees were making 60% of their salary in the bonus period. And so, I mean, so Baxter felt like that could definitely be increased. Their expectation could be increased. But they took out the incentive of, doing well and getting more done. But they also in this negotiation found that the line people were training the new line people. So there wasn't a really good training program for safety or for how, each thing worked, each position worked. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that they not a lot of very good training either. So.
Well, for our side, it says they would like to see the target set at 80% of the current level, just for
They
safety.
kind of want to step back production.
Yeah, they want to slow it down. Yeah.
Well, I think that we can find some ground to compromise here. Obviously, the injuries is a big deal. The corporate side of things, they recognize that the injury rate's higher than it ought to be, and that's clearly a problem, as safety is a big consideration. They do believe that the safety issues are more to do with bad training and a lot of new equipment and stuff. But as far as the incentive programs go, do you feel like as the employees working there, you want to have some kind of program where you do get paid more when you do well, when you have good months? Or is that something that you feel like the employees don't want to touch because it'll be an unfair thing and they'll never be able to get the incentives?
Well, in the past, the incentive program worked maybe too well because, too many people were making too much money, but it worked well. And so I would think that there needs to be some sort. I like that 80%. It didn't feel as low as it had been before.
Yeah, I still think an incentive program is good. It just needs to be adjusted. So I'm sorry, since I didn't read this, it was that they got rid of the incentive program. Is that what it was? And now they want to bring it back?
They've gotten rid of it, and so now it's kind of being negotiated for the new contract.
Okay.
So
no, I think it would definitely be.
What they had was done away with.
Yeah.
So we agree that there should be an incentive program, but finding setting goals that aren't going to increase the danger situation, since we're obviously dealing with a safety problem right now, is important. And also finding grounds where the employees aren't, making just ludicrous amounts of money on the incentive programs because the goals are so low. So.
I know they're blue collar workers and their pay is, but some of those things that in 1970, whatever it was, oh my word, the amounts of money that they were making were staggering. But, it seems, I don't know, that was interesting.
Well, I think that it looks like we've kind of come to a compromise on that one where we want the incentive plan on both sides. It'll come down to setting those numbers and figuring out how to make it work. And so, honestly, if we were actually negotiating this contract, what I would propose if I were pushing for the Baxter Corporation would be to say, hey, let's try to establish a baseline. Let's find out what safe, honest days work we'll put out as far as production goes, and then kind of work from there.
Yeah.
So low incentives at first with moderate goals, and then kind of increase to where we find a good balance and try to work that out. Is that something that if you were on the 190 side, you would want to do, or what would you do to amend that to make it more fair?
Oh, sounds fair to me.
Yeah, I think this is a lot easier for us because we're not coming into this with the bad blood. You know, we don't have a dog in that fight, as the saying goes.
Yep.
So it's easy for us to try to be rational and to be like, well, okay, here's a fair way to go about it. Whereas before, they got a lot of bitterness and there's a lot of bad feelings and a lot riding on it for these people. So I can see why it'd be a really tense, hard negotiation.
Well, it looked like everything that they had enjoyed about their job was taken away completely. And so now it's a matter of getting back to a more middle ground, which I think with that incentive program, at least that's a middle ground, and affords them a little more ability to make some money and then look very closely at taking pride in what they're doing and learning the skill again.
Well, and I also think that it's easier for us to come into this with the mindset of, hey, we want a win-win negotiation here. We want this to benefit you. We want it to benefit us. We want the company to do well and for us all to make money. And again, it's easier to come into that approach and have that approach and try to make a compromise work.
Usually how a union
don't
works.
Have that bad blood, you know? You don't have those bad feelings. You don't have so much riding on it. It's a lot easier situation to come in and try to look at it this way. But I don't know. At the same time, it's a good exercise to try to think about the different leverages here, because on the one hand, the company's threatening to lay them all off, to cancel the contract, just hire new people, start over, have all the power in the thing, and the employees are, well, we'll go on strike and you'll have to try to replace every one of us and So it can get pretty ugly for the actual people involved, and both sides are threatening to do just that.
It looks very much like since this time, that's kind of the direction it's gone, though. Seems that the labor unions have less and less weight, and often those employees are getting the low end of the totem pole instead of a little more help or incentive in that point. But
yeah, well, that's a whole nother deal.
Yep.
You've kind of gone off the deep.
We'll bypass that.
Gosh.
Yeah, it's a mess.
All right, well, let's skip on to the next thing here. The work rules. So this was another big issue where the company wants to have all the power in the rules, and the employees are like, well, we like how things were. This is a pain in the rear. We hate everything about it. So
they take all the power away from the worker itself. So that's an issue.
Reading in the past, they had more autonomy.
Yeah.
They weren't, they weren't being micromanaged so much. And now it seems like that's what it is.
Yep.
But I think they would like to go back to the old ways.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and I can see, obviously both sides have, on all of these issues, both sides have points that are important, but I think it's pretty crucial that, I think you ought to give your workers a say. I mean, obviously the company needs to have some say on the rules and what's going to go down, but if you give employees an opportunity to come in and have a voice and be like, hey, this is a better way of doing this. Like it says in here that the company doesn't give them any sort of say on how things are done, even when they might know better, or they're very rigid on all kinds of stuff as far as the new with the new production standards. And so I think I feel like it makes a big difference when you feel like you have a say in what's going on, especially when rules are really stupid or really poorly done. And there's very few things that can demoralize people faster than having to put up with really dumb rules for no apparent reason.
Yeah.
Well, I think the union members realize that it's never going to go back to the way it was before completely, but at least if they could have like a 50-50 say on the management and the union representatives, like, you know, they meet together and they have to agree together. It's not just the management saying this is how it's going to be done, but
Yeah.
they have to come to an agreement.
It's a give and take, and it doesn't seem like that
Yeah, and
they're willing to give.
if it, that's, to me, that seems how it should be like that all the time. And if the workers had more than a 50% say in what happened, I don't know, that doesn't seem right either. But I think that's the fairest way to go about it, is to have an equal voice.
To be honest, when I was reading this one, I just felt like this is kind of like an extension of the pettiness that has kind of come out through the situation. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it seems obvious to me that you have to have rules and that each party needs to have a say in what they are, and that it's in everyone's best interest here to have work rules that are efficient, that protect the employees, that help the company do well. Like, there's no reason to have a lot of disagreement on the rules.
Yeah.
There just isn't. The better rule, you know, employees understand that they need to be on the job, that they need to be safe, that they need to be efficient, and that it's good for them to do it in the long run. Like, yeah, it might be nice to be able to slack off a little bit here and there or whatever they wanted to do. But in the end, if they do that enough, then, you know, it's bad for their company and they're going to get laid off. You know, everyone understands, every adult human understands that rules are good and that you have to have them. And the fact that they're not willing to compromise on this is pettiness from the company. And then, you know, the employees whining so much about it, again, is pettiness from to me, this is kind of like the work rules. It felt to me like this was the crux of the bad blood, where it's like, oh yeah, well, you guys are going to whine and say strike, well, we're going to do all of this. And then, you know, the employees are like, well, if you're going to make us do all this, then we're going to whine and go on strike. You know, I just feel like this is one of the stupider, the kind of the dumber parts of the negotiation. There's no reason for this to be a big issue.
Well, and it seems that, and I think management can do this often when they don't quite understand what the factory or the line worker does. They haven't lived that life, or they haven't understood what it takes. And I think that injury rate, I mean, they're inflicting rules that are going to in turn hurt their company and their production rate more than anything else, which I don't think that they've understood that yet. They've taken that balance of power way too far.
So it sounds like we've got a consensus that we need to come together and give, you know, obviously the company itself has final say on the rules, but the employees need to have a say, and it needs to be taken into account. You know, and they need to know that what they think matters. And I feel like that's a pretty much a no-brainer. It's not going to be the way it was. Everything's changed. The entire factory is different. All the machinery is different. Everything about how the factory runs is different. It's going to be different.
I also think the employees need to understand. I know somewhere it talked about if they needed to take a break, they had to talk to their supervisor and get the supervisor to get someone to replace them. But, you know, that supervisor need to realize that needs to happen. They can't just leave a post, or they can't just deal with it themselves. They need that structure and that management tier to help everything run effectively. And I think that they're not used to that either. And so that's making it all harder. So,
and that's just the stuff that came along with in basically every company when we went into this huge industrialization and we automated so many jobs that weren't automated before.
Yep.
And, you know, this period was, you know, had been going on for a while, but all throughout this, with the advancement of computers and sophistication of the technology, there's so much of this that's going on. And it completely changes how things work when you're, you know, half of your labor force or more has just been replaced by machines.
Right.
You know, it changes the process. It does. And so anyways, I think there's not really a lot of reason to spend more time on going over the work rules. I think it's pretty obvious that they're both kind of being stupid about that. And again, much easier to say from where we're sitting here. I'm not saying that they're in the wrong per se. It's just, if you're looking at this from a purely logical negotiation standpoint, it seems like a pretty easy one to reach a compromise on.
Yep.
The next issue on the table is the layoff and hiring procedures. What do you guys like to introduce? Kind of what's going on with this one?
Let me read the 3 paragraphs really quick. I don't know why I thought this was something that we were going to be doing together, or I don't know. The instructions weren't totally clear for me, so.
Hey, that's just fine. I'm just
going to read them really quick.
You wouldn't have remembered what you read yesterday anyway.
That's true.
Don't even worry about it. There's just the 3 of us. There's no reason to stress about anything. We'll just go through this, try to understand the concepts, and be done.
Yeah, go ahead, and I'll just glance over this.
Well, I just think that when I read it, I'm remembering that the layoffs are necessary. If the layoffs are necessary, any new hiring should be done off the layoff list. Sorry, now I'm getting confused, but I think it's the 52-week layoff notice. You've got 52 weeks before your layoff. Which seems unbelievable to me, quite frankly, that you would have that much time to know that you're being laid off. So the union's trying to protect this, but if the layoffs are necessary, any new hiring should be done off the layoff list. And so that meaning that once the layoffs are taken care of, you want them to go back to the practice that those people that were laid off get first dibs on those jobs is coming back. So that makes sense to me. I think the 52-week is, that's got to be an awful lot of planning for management to know exactly where they're headed and what will happen a year at a time, which I'm sure that they look at, but that's still a long ways to predict.
So if that's the union's side, what is Baxter's side on that then?
Baxter's side is the layoffs obviously are needful because we have the new technology doing the jobs of a lot of people. Another thing that Baxter did was they have a whole lot of older people that just aren't
young people
so they've given them generous severance packages, generous retirement stuff. They're getting them out. And their other thing is, you say that the union wants 100%, like if you're hiring, you have to do it off the layoff list. And Baxter doesn't want to do that. They want to get new talent, new people in. They don't want people in that are, because they have a whole group of employees that are resistant to the changes. They don't want to do things a new way. They don't like this. They don't like that. They don't like how the plant's being run. So they want new blood in. They want people in that don't know how the old stuff was. They want people to come in and be excited about the cool new factory and interested in learning how to do all this stuff. And so Baxter's side of this is we want to be able to hire whoever we want. We don't want, that's no one's business. We're doing as little laying off as possible. Like, obviously, we don't want to have any part. That's not a fun part of any company, but this is the change that's going. We're trying to be as generous about it as we can, and we need to have all the say over who we're hiring. So where's the middle ground in that?
Yeah, because I think to the union workers, they just think that that's standard that's standard in their industry.
Yeah.
So for them, it's like, well, that's how it is in every other company, so why can't we have it stay the same?
Well, and for them, it's all about their people. It's all about giving their people jobs, right?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of unions. I should have read the other side.
Well, but the other side seems to want to protect those union workers to a point. And maybe they want to keep that 52-week layoff notice, but then say, maybe a percentage of the number of rehires can be off the layoff list and the other isn't. And so that layoff list really, you can pick and choose the good ones and then go somewhere else for the others. So maybe there's a 30% that you have to hire after, rehire off the layoff list, and the rest you can go somewhere else.
The company's actually really firm about this. In the negotiation area, it says they will only go as high as 50% of filling new people from the layoff list And that's like the very worst case scenario for them. So this is actually a big deal for the company. They really want to fight this fight.
So that's why I'm saying let's give it 30, the 30% off the layoff list and the 70% not on the layoff list.
And you see the 190, they are not going to like that. It seems like that's a huge point for them to fight, to make sure they hire off the layoff list. So this could actually be a really difficult point to.
If they're on the layoff list and they've been laid off, they probably need to go find new jobs or get more training so that they can be rehired.
Well, so maybe you guys can help me with this, because the last sentence says, this is a critical issue to you. You can't provide benefits for your members if they're not working. So is it because they're part of a union are still supposed to get benefits even if they're not working? I didn't quite understand what that meant.
Sure about that. I think there's a severance package. I'm not sure.
I think that's talking directly to the union. It's critical for the union to have this point to win it, because they want to keep their people employed. As a union, that's how do you measure your success? It's completely measured by what you're actually being able to provide your members as far as jobs and as far as benefits go. So this is like your number one deal, is keeping your people in jobs. And I don't know all the details behind that, but.
So what if we said 40/60 instead? I don't know. I definitely think that there's going to be people on that layoff list that you want back. And that
I think the company has to throw out their upper limit offers and be like, look, we need new blood. Some of these people aren't a good fit. That's kind of why they're being targeted by the layoffs. We understand that that we need to do some hiring back from it, but we're completely unwilling to go. And so this is kind of, I think this is where they both kind of lay down their ultimatums, where the company says, look, we're going to do this, or we're canceling this deal. You're going to have to take it or leave it on this point. And the union has to say, well, we're willing to do this or we strike. And then it's whoever caves first, as far as what they compromise. That's what I imagine happens. It's easier for me to say, well, look, we'll be reasonable. What do you say? We'll go up to 50 and okay, well, compromise, right? But I think in reality, what happens is I think this is where they start throwing weight around to see who can actually, who has more leverage, who can withstand the strike, or who can handle the contract being lost. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it looks like I'm supposed to stand firm and say, well, if you don't give us what we want, we're going to strike.
That's exactly what I think their position is, and I bet that's what happens. I mean, it's just this is definitely a point where both companies are really strong. It's not as easy as negotiating some new rules,
Yeah. And maybe it ends up being in the 50-50, and maybe that's what you go in for. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I know that I personally, I feel like I'd be willing to. Of course, I'm quick to negotiate. That's just my personality.
Done.
I just feel like it's stupid not to find a third route. Like, what? There's no reason not to try to make things work for both parties. And if they don't work for both parties, you can't make that work, then you got to walk. That's all there's to it. Either you make it work or you can't. There's nothing else. There's no reason to waste time on anything else. And so.
Yeah, you wouldn't be a very good
That makes sense, and that's easy. But again, it's just so much easier when you're detached from it, when it's not a big thing.
I'm like, whatever you guys say, because it doesn't really matter. But I'm still supposed to say, oh, we're gonna strike.
Well, and it does seem like both sides are very unreasonable, and tensions are so high, and so you're at the just the ending of that long drought of unemployment and recession type, and people want to get back on their feet, and when they feel like the government's taking over more and more and they don't have a say, and the government meaning also the big business, so it's a tricky time.
Well, I think I'm like 50-50, just like in the other negotiating on the incentive.
Well, would you guys like to move on to the final point?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Feel like we're good there?
Yeah.
All right, the last thing is wages. The company's opinion is that they pay very well. They pay in the top, some of the highest wages in the industry. They do the incentives. They've done a lot of stuff. They're a great paying company. They are willing to pay slightly more, but they can't imagine that this would be a big issue because they've been doing so well on it. What is the 190's opinion on that? I didn't read their side of things.
It just says that we think that it's a reasonable request to ask for a share of the surplus that is being made. Sacrifice so much for the company.
This might be a place where there's a little wiggle room where the company is willing to pay a little more than the employees. Maybe you could say, hey, well, we will do that. We will share some of the surplus, and in return, maybe you give us a little more leverage on the hiring. Because, that's how these negotiations work. It's a give and take. It's we are willing to do this if you're going to have to cave for us here sort of deal. And
Right.
that's a little wiggle room in this contract.
Well, and they're making great money. I mean, they're doing better than they expected to do. It's almost doubled in the net. The net earnings is more than doubled since 1975. So they definitely can give to their employees that way.
Well, did you guys take the little quiz where you had to
Not
say,
yet. The quiz.
like give an amount that you think? I just went with 20%. We'll take a 20% pay raise because somewhere I read they were, doing 20% better. Or I don't know, but that might have been a little too high. But
And I put that I like the idea, and I can't remember who gave it, but it started at a base pay, and then after a year, as earnings went up, they increased by, I think it was like 10%, and it went up every year depending upon earnings. And so that made sense to me, instead of just saying, here it is, but this kind of took care of the negotiations for every year as they continue to do well. So
All right. Well, at the end of the day, what this really comes down to is, who do you think has more power in this leverage? Who can actually pull, who hurts worse? That's the real question that gets answered. If the company hires new people and cancels the contract, or if the union strikes them, who hurts worse? Who caves?
I think who gets hurt? I think the employee gets hurt. The labor union gets hurt. Those are people that this is their livelihood, and ultimately they are going to get hurt.
Well, in the company, they need, people are going to watch for that. They're going to see, if they cancel a contract, that's not going to look good to them. So they kind of have to, I think the company definitely has more power. They can do whatever they want. And I agree that the workers are the ones that get hurt because, they don't, and the company's doing so well, they can afford a pay raise, to give them a pay raise, whatever that may be. But I do think that the workers take more, they're hurt more. But the company has to be careful because it will be noted if they do that, if they cancel contracts, and they want to keep their good reputation.
Unfortunately, I think that most companies just can hire anybody that they want. They don't care. I think that they just need it done. And ethically, yeah, that's what we'd hope that they do. But you look at an awful lot of mining towns or processing plant towns where that union was their whole life, their whole city, their whole everything. And as those companies didn't take care of their employee, the whole town suffers. But the companies seem to just kind of relocate, which is exactly what Deloitte did. They found a different place. They want to build another plant more efficiently. They keep moving and churning. Those towns and those employees, that breaks down. And the future of, union workers for so many decades that that's what their kids did. You know, dad worked here, the kids worked here. I mean, it was just a constant flow. I don't think today it's like that as much, or in very many locations anymore. But so I think that it really hurts the employee. But
I agree completely. I mean, it says here in the summary that, you know, if they decide to hire, yeah, they get some bad press, but honestly, they haven't done anything wrong. They just couldn't reach an agreement with these guys, so they got rid of them.
Yeah.
But so yeah, they lose some bad press, but then they hire you got to think about it from the company's perspective. If they hire new people, they pay them less because they're not experienced. You know, they can pay up to $5 an hour less for every employee, so they can save a ton of money. They have to retrain them anyway because all the guys that they've got are basically need retrained as is. There's tons of safety accidents. It's a whole new factory. It's a whole new game they're doing. So they lose nothing on the training. They pay the people less. They'll probably be better trained after they're done. And if they do this, they have all the power because these people coming in, they're not going to know anything. They'll just accept whatever rules are there. You know what I mean? If they do this and get rid of all these old people, the company maintains all of its power over all of these different critical areas. They can set their own rules. They can set their this. They can set their that. And they don't even have to worry about dealing with the union. So,
well, and it used to be the union workers. They stayed at their job. That was career. That's where they started. That's where they ended. They took care of their family. They took care of, everything. Life was centered around that. And I think, I don't know when it started, if maybe 1985 that started, but there's so much more turnover in jobs. People don't keep those same jobs anymore that they started out. And there's obviously, Detroit clearly has those union workers and that union feel still, but there's a lot of places that have really moved away from that union.
Well, and there was a time and a place for it. Back in the day, it was really critical when there were basically no labor laws of any kind, and but now there are other protections that work better, and the unions have kind of become this blood-sucking.
Yep.
Sorry, maybe I'll keep that opinion. Anyways, the point is the company has all the power in this situation.
Yeah.
If these guys won't make a deal, then they're not going to pay out the nose to keep old employees. What's the point?
Nope. I agree.
All they do is lose on it. So at a certain point, the company has the power in this because they're bargaining just out of a desire to make things work and to keep a good reputation and to be that kind of company. But at the end of the day, if it's going to cost too much, then there's no point. You just take the cheaper route and you do this and that because, there's no reason to give up all of this stuff if they're going to be unreasonable about it. They have too much of the power, so they don't have to bargain.
Yep.
It'd be a different thing if they really needed these guys to succeed, but they don't. They don't need them at all. It's
not anymore because things are so automated. Yep.
Exactly. They don't need them. And so they have the power. And that, in the end, is what it'll come down to, I think.
Yep. Very sad.
All righty. So, anyone have any last thoughts on this negotiation?
Nope, I'm good.
I'm pretty sure what we were supposed to do was argue about this and then come to the realization one way or another that there's only so much give and take, blah, blah, blah. I think we've kind of hit that. As far as the paper goes, I've received both of your emails and put your things together. It looks good. I've been working on mine. I wish I were done. I'm not. But I will finish it up. I'll email it to you guys before I submit it, give you a chance to look it over. I plan on finishing that up on Saturday. That's really the only day that I could possibly do it.
That's fine.
It's not ideal, but
how it goes.
So Saturday or maybe Sunday if things go poorly. It's like I said, this is a crazy week. I've got my 1-year anniversary and Thanksgiving and everything else going on this week. So
You're gonna
I have less say in what happens in my life right now than I would like to be true.
Yeah. No, you're good. And I'm not overly worried. What I read on mine, I honestly, it's out there. I'm sure it's gonna be great. I don't even remember what I wrote. It's been 3 days.
It's in the
You know, I'll get it done and turn it in. I give you my word.
Sounds great.
Saturday or Sunday, but I'll send it to you first and give you a chance to look it over. If I don't hear back from you in time or I don't give you enough time, I apologize in advance, but hopefully it'll be fine. I'll turn it in. But
If it happens to be on Sunday and you don't hear from me, it's just because we're traveling home on Sunday. So
I'll just feel bad in that case that I didn't give you a chance to catch any mistakes that I may have missed. But
you'll be like, hey, I'm
worried.
I don't
at the
care.
end of the day, I'm going to submit what we wrote, so I'm sure we'll do fine. We've been doing great. I'm just going to follow the exact same pattern you guys did in writing that extra portion and
Sounds good.
doing my own part. So, it's been fine so far. Can't imagine having a problem.
Yep.
Is there anything else we need to go over? Are you guys all good?
I'm good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then, thank you so much. I'll post the link to this meeting on the thing, and we should be set for this week.
And then next week, just Thursday again.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, then I wish you guys a happy Turkey Day.
You too.
And it'll be my turn again, right? Yes.
Yes.
I'll invite you guys. So.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you so much.
And happy anniversary.
Hey, well, yeah, thanks.
Bye-bye.
All right. Goodbye.